Hey, baseball's brightest fans. I'm John Manuel along with Aaron Fitt. Welcome to a Baseball America Google Plus Hangout. Aaron, I couldn't keep a straight face. That's back to the old days of the Baseball America podcast. Alan Matthews' old recorded intro. I love it when Alan would go, "Hello, baseball's brightest fans." It's awesome.
That's hard to beat right there. I mean, I know you got your peace out and everything, you got your signature, but I don't know if we're gonna ever top Alan Matthews.
I don't think so. Alan, well, one of the many good eggs we've had here at Baseball America over the years, I've managed to rope Aaron into sticking around and, with my old self here for quite a while. We have a long college baseball memory. We love talking college baseball every Friday here on the Google Hangout. And Aaron, one of the perks about the end of the season is that on the Hangout on Friday, we get to talk about what happened Thursday night because there were a lot of games last night. It sounds like the Fit Cave had some weather-related issues. It looks like it's clear behind you now, which is great, but a lot of rain in the Raleigh-Durham area, so we had games in North Carolina that got rained out. But thankfully, not rained out in the when Minnesota played Indiana, and not rained out in Nashville for a key SEC battle between South Carolina and Vanderbilt. That was a pretty classic game, Aaron. A big bounce back game for Tyler Beatty after struggling last Thursday against with his command against Florida. We talked about him a lot last week. He pitched into the ninth inning, but those Gamecocks, Aaron, through injuries, through a very difficult SEC schedule. I mean, we've talked about their non-conference schedule, but the SEC's rough and tumble every weekend, and a big Thursday night victory last night with a run in the ninth on a single by oft-injured Max Schrock, who's really had a injury-plagued sophomore season, and then a go-ahead home run in the 10th inning by Joey Pancake. Joel Seddon locks it down in the 10th. The guys who were supposed to be South Carolina's guys really came through last night, and Tanner English with the outfield assist at the plate. A pretty thrilling game and a pretty complete win for the Gamecocks.
Yeah, I thought it was one of the more compelling games I've watched all year. I just thought it was played at a very high level, on both sides. And the people who are always banging on college baseball for a lack of excitement, they need to see more games like this because even though it was only 4-3, I mean, I don't think excitement and 10-9 are the same thing. I just like to see the game played at a high level, and last night we saw that. We saw standout defensive plays from both sides all over the place. I mean, the Vanderbilt infielders are a lot of fun to watch. I mean, you know how much I love Vince Conde and Dansby Swanson, another one of those guys that's just a playmaker. And then South Carolina on their side, they threw out a couple of guys at the plate. The play that Tanner English made in the ninth to save the game. I love how Kyle Peterson broke it down in the broadcast last night. He highlighted the fact that it's not that English has a gun necessarily in the outfield, but he read the ball so well, and he's got so much speed that he was able to close a lot of the distance and really make the throw shorter. And he made a good throw. It seemed like he put everything into it, and it was on the line, and and Griner applied the tag there. I mean, it was really a fun game to watch. Those teams going back and forth. I thought Beatty, battled certainly. He seemed like he settled in a little bit of a groove there in the later innings. The command still was iffy here and there, and even in the ninth, I think it was a leadoff hit batsman that wound up scoring the tying run. So those things will still bite you. But he competed hard certainly, and Montgomery did as well. And it was a great game. It was a fun night of baseball, even at home when the satellite dish was cooperating. We had that storm overhead, but. I had that game going. I had a couple of Big 12 games with Oklahoma State and Oklahoma. Cowboys are really cruising right now. I thought John Perrin looked great last night once again, and those guys were swinging the bats pretty well as well. And TCU, on the other hand, I had that game going a little bit. Finnegan struggled, did not locate at all with his fastball or his slider. A lot of pitches up. He got knocked around some. It's certainly not the same Finnegan that I saw a couple of months ago in Fort Worth. And then West Virginia, Texas Tech gave us another extra inning game. I had that game going for a while. West Virginia showed some character coming back in the ninth inning, down 2 runs, and then lost it in the 11th, I think. Texas Tech is a resilient club, and West Virginia's lost 5 in a row now. They could be in some bubble trouble.
Those are two interesting teams there, that West Virginia Texas Tech matchup, because I think of actually West Virginia almost as kind of like being the star-laden team. Harrison Musgrove had some big wins last year, kind of made a name for himself. And what's the senior first baseman's name? I'm
Ryan
blanking on it.
McBroom.
McBroom?
Yeah.
McBroom. That's another guy who's put up some good numbers this year. He gives them a little presence offensively. Boyd, their center fielder, who's a real dynamic kind of table setter. So, I think of West Virginia almost as the star-laden team, and Texas Tech as the grindy team. But they're both real grinder clubs. I think we've talked about it in recent weeks, but man, the Big 12 is it's a solid league. It's really tough, I think, to get a read on who truly the best team in that league is. I guess you have to give it to Oklahoma State because they've been the most consistent team here in the last 6 weeks, and I think we would have said TCU, Aaron, but they're just a different team the last 30 weeks without Brandon Finnegan mowing on Friday nights and setting that tone.
It changes the dynamic for TCU, and I agree with you completely. I would have said TCU if Finnegan was fully healthy, because I do think they have better pitching. When he's healthy, even when he's not healthy, TCU's pitching with Preston Morrison and Tyler Alexander, the freshman left-hander that they were so excited about. He's come on really strong here in the second half. Been every bit as good, I think, as Jim Schlossnagle expected him to be. And then, certainly in the bullpen, they've got big guns back there as well. Last night we saw Jordan Kipper come out of the bullpen and put up zeros after Finnegan came out and kind of kept them in the game. But I still think TCU is a very good club. Even and hey, who knows what's going on with Finnegan? I mean, at least he's pitching. It's not like he's sidelined.
Yeah.
Which so many other guys are. It seems like right now. But I still like their club a lot, with or without Finnegan at 100%. But I agree with you. Oklahoma State is playing with so much confidence right now, and their pitching staff, the way they piece it together, is a little bit like Florida, where you got the one guy on Friday, whether it's Logan Shore or it's John Perrin, that you can trust to get you deep into the game. And then they kind of piece it together the rest of the weekend, and they have bullpens that they really trust. And in Oklahoma State's case, it's Brendan McCurry and Vince Whelan back there that can really shorten games, they've got a lot of depth, and they just kind of piece it together, and maybe they don't go deep into the game on Saturday and Sunday with their starters, but they're able to win anyway, and they swing the bats pretty well. So Oklahoma State is a good club.
It is a good club. I think again we've talked about the coaching staff there ad nauseum. There are a lot of good coaching staffs out there. That's one of the ones that impresses their peers and impresses scouts and deserves merits mention. Aaron, you wrote a stock report this week, as you've done every week for the past 6 weeks. It's probably the bane of your existence by now. But short version of stock report: in Old Dominion and San Diego State into the field of 64, out Florida International and UC Santa Barbara. What's the big reason why ODU and San Diego State get in?
Well, Old Dominion's still kind of hanging their hats on a very strong RPI. And they'd taken a step back in conference, and then they kind of got it together again. They swept the series last week. They've got a big midweek win against Virginia a couple of weeks ago that helps a lot. They basically, I think they can still finish inside the top 32 in the RPI if they sweep this last non-conference series against Long Island. It looks like they're probably locked into fourth place in the league. And the reason I had them out before was they were lower in the standings. And to me, the resume had been shaping up kind of like Notre Dame last year, where they had a good RPI, but not a good enough, record in their conference. But now they're, I think, fourth place, probably good enough, even though it's not a great league. If you combine it with that RPI, I think they're probably in. And then San Diego State, they had another nice win last night at Fresno. They're up to 47 in the RPI now, I believe. San Diego State is an interesting team. They've got an older bunch. They've got some offensive firepower. I think they've got some, certainly some weapons on the mound with Cedar Roth at the back of the bullpen. But they won a series last weekend against UNLV that was huge for them. I love the fact that they have a non-conference series win at UC Irvine and a series win also against West Virginia early in the season. So to me, those non-conference series really boost San Diego State, and they got 36 wins overall, and the RPI is okay. So I kind of like their resume.
Boy, it's amazing though to me that Aaron, that not amazing. The Mountain West we've talked about. That's a underrated league. It's a good league. The top of that league is very competitive. But Conference USA, a league that a decade ago really hung its hat on baseball, as it's they had some interesting basketball programs. But baseball was where that league was going to make its mark, and it just the league's fallen apart in terms of conference members being torn asunder. But even before that, Aaron, the baseball programs in that league just started dipping. And it's just you have on the bubble out like 6 teams it seems like in that league with UAB and East Carolina kind of trending a little bit higher. But it's just really strange to see that Conference USA is a two-bid league, and measuring the Conference USA against like the Sun Belt or the Southland and baseball, Rice is all that really kind of separates Conference USA from those other leagues.
And I'll tell you, I actually expected this to be a very good year for Conference USA because you had this influx of quality baseball programs like Florida Atlantic, like FIU, UTSA. I mean, these are Charlotte. I mean, all these programs have had success in other conferences, and so I thought this year you got 13 teams. I'm sure I can't remember what's happening next year. I feel like some of these teams are moving back out again.
Yeah, I
Um,
think East Carolina is, and I'm not sure who else.
But I figured this year would be pretty good. And then Southern Miss, with their that ballyhoo junior class, I figured maybe they had another push in them this year, and they're kind of just treading water. They're in the discussion for regional, but they're 67 in the RPI. Probably not going to happen. UAB is a team that's been kind of the surprise team, but really, I thought this had a chance to be maybe a four, maybe even a five-bid league heading into the season, and a lot of these teams I think have underachieved. Florida Atlantic, most of all, I think 12 and 15 in the league, 2 games over 500 overall. That's a team we thought was going to be pretty good with a lot back from last year's club.
Yeah, and I don't know if he pitched last night, but Austin Gomber missed his last two starts with the full body fatigue and arm soreness. That's not what you want to hear going into the draft from a player. So that's an unfortunate happening in Conference USA. Aaron, you also wrote about a couple of bubble teams out west, Long Beach State and Stanford. Real quick, because I did want to touch on Ball State, the MAC regular season champions. But how about if you had to take your bets now? Did you have Long Beach State in and Stanford out this week? Am I correct in that? Or are they both on the bubble out right now?
I had Long Beach in, and I feel pretty good now about the way this thing is shaping up for Long Beach. They've won a bunch of series in a row against some of the better teams in the league. They're 51 in the RPI. They've got a series win against Indiana early on. They played at Vanderbilt early, so the non-conference strength of schedule is really good. They're 4 games over 500. I think they can probably win three games here over the last 2 weeks to get to 30 wins, and I think they're in good shape. Stanford's a team that's harder to get a feel for. They're actually better in the RPI at 42, but that RPI is dropping and could continue to drop, because what they have left on the schedule, it's Washington State and it's at Utah. They need to finish strong in those 2 weekends. I think the needs report says they need to win 6 of their last 7 to stay inside the top 45. Now, we know that on the West there's a little bit more leeway, especially with the West Coast Committee chairman. We saw teams last year as low as 56 get in on the West. So, Stanford can finish it in the top 50 to 55, they'll be okay. So maybe they have a chance. I just don't know if I really believe in their team enough to frankly be able to win these last 2 series. I still think Washington State is dangerous. I don't think that's a gimme series. We'll see what happens. I think if Stanford wins the series, maybe sweeps it against Washington State this weekend, I'll probably have them in. But right now they're kind of right there on the edge for me. They're still below 500 in the league. I think 11 and 13 in the pack. So a lot on the line for those guys this weekend.
I think you nailed their candidacy. The thing about Stanford is, again, it's one of these RPI arguments, Aaron, where they played a good schedule. I would say a great schedule. Rice, at Texas, at Vanderbilt, their first 3 weekends, and then home to Kansas. They won one of those series, the home series against Kansas. And that looks great right now because the Jayhawks certainly finished great and a very strong Big 12. But, going how many points do you really give a team for going 2-7 against Rice, Texas, and Vanderbilt? If you're a regional caliber team, I don't think it's too much to expect 3-6 or 4-5 out of that stretch. It's very difficult. Now they did again. The next 2 weekends were USC and Oregon. They did win that Oregon series. So I guess Oregon would be perfect if Stanford got in for Oregon because there's another regional team that Oregon would lose a series to. Again, I know that I'm betting on the Ducks a little bit more than I should, but they also got swept at at Oregon State. Lost the series at Washington. So Stanford has played the better teams. They've lost the series. The best series win, I guess, for them really are Kansas and Arizona State. So does Stanford deserve to be a regional team? I think that you could argue that case all day, and they're one of the tougher ones, I think, for the committee. Real quick, Tucker Blankenship, a big NC State fan, tweets at us a lot. He asks for the Hangout. NC State, of course, he asks about the Wolfpack. They sweep Virginia Tech and go 2-2 in the ACC tournament. Do they get into the NCAA tournament? Also, what game would you start Rodon at ACC tournament? That's a whole different question. Um, Aaron, what's your take on the Wolfpack from Stock Reporter? Where could they go if they were to sweep that series?
Yeah, if they sweep that series and they win a couple of games in the conference tournament, they have a chance. They do. I mean, they're 58 in the RPI heading into the week. I think they at 12 conference wins right now, John? Does that sound right to you?
Yeah,
Or 11?
I think they're 12 and 15. They're either 11 and 16 or 12 and 15.
11 and 16 actually. So if they sweep that series,
Okay.
they can get to 14 and 16. At that point, 14 wins in the ACC. Teams usually have a pretty decent shot, but it can go either way, especially for a borderline RPI team like State without a lot of top 50 success. They're 4-11 against top 50, so that really hurts them. I think they need probably to do even a little bit more than that in the conference tournament. Win the play-in game, maybe win 2 games in pool play. Maybe then they're in, but it's really, there's not a lot of substance on their resume right now. I mean, the only thing they have going for them is name recognition.
Playing a lot of those games.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. I mean,
They played a lot of top 50 games. 15 of those. I mean, that's really it. I mean, Aaron, their whole season to me down the stretch, obviously, I think you look at 2 games. The game they blew at Duke when they were winning 10-4 and gave up 7 runs in the last 2 innings and lost. And the game last Monday, as you wrote, a critical loss against Wake Forest where they had a chance to tie Wake in the league standings. And they were losing 2-1 in the ninth. They rallied to tie that game in the bottom of the ninth. You got some momentum, and then they give up with some errors and some walks and the hoy hoy and all this stuff. They give up 6 runs at the top of the ninth, top of the 10th, I should say. They get a 3-run homer from Trey Turner in the bottom of the 10th and get the tying run to the plate, I think, later in that inning. But lose. So it hasn't been a want-to thing with NC State. It really just has been, I think, just a flawed pitching staff that just hasn't been as good as they thought they would be. And today they've got Jernigan and Rodon starting a doubleheader at Virginia Tech. So going to be tough to sweep, I think, on the road for NC State, considering they really, outside of Notre Dame, I don't think they've swept the team all year. So I
yeah,
think it's a lot
they're
to ask for NC State all of a sudden to start sweeping.
I agree with you. That's exactly right. And their best series wins are Georgia Tech and Clemson, and Clemson's that's a bubble team if ever I've seen one. And Georgia Tech is not a whole lot better than that. They're 14 and 16 in the league, and they're done. So, the ACC
Those
is
two teams
just
are both bubblelicious.
yeah, the ACC is just so it's mediocre after the top three
Soft.
teams. That's it. It's just
It's soft.
you know
It's a soft middle this year in that league. And really to me, Duke and NC State I think are better than Georgia Tech and maybe Clemson and maybe North Carolina. But they haven't gotten it done at critical times. Duke's schedule leaves it hanging a little bit in the RPI. And, I think we've talked a lot of ACC though this year. Let's wrap up, Aaron, by talking about just a flash from the past. Ball State, which has suddenly kind of even put itself in the at-large mix here. You know, as everyone knows, 10 years ago I used to do this beat, and but Ball State was like on the rise. And Coach Rich Maloney, they produced the first overall pick in the draft, which was a mistake. Brian Bullington should not have been the first overall pick in the 2002 draft, but he was a guy. I already forget the picture. I believe it was Jeremy Wexler on the 2001 team, who I remember seeing Ball State at Duke. It's all coming back to me now. Jeremy Wexler, I believe, was the young man's name. Strong-bodied, stocky Midwestern right-hander. And saw him pitch at Duke when he was a junior. Got all excited about him, and Coach Maloney told me, no, come back tomorrow. The Bullington kid is the guy who is going to go real good in the draft. They also had a big 6'8 left-hander whom the Cubs drafted. Oh, man, I'm blanking on his name. They had Larry Bigby, who got to the big leagues. Who was the 6'8 left-hander who got hurt? It was a Cubs draft pick. I liked him. But they had some talent. At the turn of the century, Ball State really had really good college players. They had a couple of twins who played like catcher and second base. I mean, they were good. They were a legitimately good team, and they were part of the reason we ran a big feature on, boy, the MAC is probably better than the Big Ten in the last decade. And we went through draft picks and program success. And at that time, basically, the MAC was just kicking the Big Ten's butt. And that certainly is not the case anymore. Rich Maloney was part of the reason for that. He went from Ball State to Michigan, had Michigan win a regional at Vanderbilt. Don't forget, people need to remember, SEC teams sometimes do lose home regionals. and Michigan State did it. I mean, Michigan, I should say, did it at Vanderbilt, but the program faltered thereafter, and Rich Maloney lost the job at Michigan. Now he's back at Ball State, Aaron, and this year with a very freshman-heavy team. Uh, Ball State is back in business. They've clinched the MAC regular season. They're 20-4 in the league. They're pretty red hot. This is a team, Aaron, that gave up 50 runs in back-to-back games earlier this year to Kentucky, and yet got up off the mat and won this league, just sweeping Kent State last weekend. What's going on at Ball State? What's got this team back in the national baseball picture?
Well, I'll tell you what. First of all, I think they're experienced on the mound. And last night we saw T.J. Weir pitch a strong game for them, and in a game to clinch the conference title. He's a senior. Has played two ways for them. Over the course of his career, and has had a great year. Leads the team in strikeouts, and you've got Scott Baker, another kind of veteran guy that's won a lot of games for them. He hasn't had as good a year as he had last year, when I think he was a MAC pitcher of the year last year.
I
But
think you're right.
and then Zach Plesac has had a great year as kind of a swing guy, but mostly a bullpen guy who's won 11 games and had 6 saves and 78 innings. I mean, this guy's impacted a lot of games for Ball State. So I think that the pitching staff strikes me really as experienced and gritty. And then you talked about I think they got 4 or 5 freshmen heading into the year they were planning on really counting on. And one of them is this kid Staten. He hit a home run last night early in the game. They've got a little bit of pop in the lineup. I think they've got 43 home runs. That's pretty darn good in this era. So they've got a bunch of different.
That's huge.
Yeah, they got a bunch of different guys that have 4 or more homers, which is not easy to do in this day and age. So they got some firepower, and I think the young talent here gives them an exciting core to build around for the future.
It really is their first conference championship since 2001, according to the league website, which is pretty blast from the past for Ball State. So kudos to Coach Maloney, longtime BA fave. Did do a nice job there at Michigan, and then things just tough to sustain at that school. And obviously Eric Backich there, and the Big Ten is just so much more, just so much a stronger baseball league here. And I think if you chart it back to 2002, all the new facilities in the Big Ten, I mean, that league has just made such more of a commitment to baseball. It's just a harder league to win, and of course, since then, we've had the MAC in 2012 with Kent State get to Omaha, and Indiana in 2013 get to Omaha. So things have looked up in college baseball in the upper Midwest. And we've gone a long time on the Hangout. I should let you go. I've got stuff to do, too. Mock drafts going live at baseballamerica.com. Are you headed anywhere this weekend to see any games, or is the rain going to do you in?
I think I'm going to stay home and write draft reports here I'm heading to Hoover on Monday for the SEC tournament. Can try to get all my draft guys written up before then. And as much as I'd love to go see some action here, we got Virginia, Wake Forest. We got Carlos Rodon's potentially final start up at Virginia Tech today. But
we will have
I'm going to stay put.
Clint Longnecker, our draft maven. He will be. He's on his way to Blacksburg now. Took care of a speeding ticket in Western NC. And Aaron, you'll be amused to learn that wearing a suit got. Let's just say that the Clint stood out by wearing a suit to court, and his result was commensurate with the way that he was dressed. So we'll just put it that way. So
That's
justice was done at Western NC today. So Clint Longnecker will be on the scene. He's at Clint_BA, and he'll be on the scene in Blacksburg for Carlos Rodon's possibly last college baseball start. If NC State gets swept in that doubleheader, he's done. They won't even make the ACC tournament. So could be an end of and obviously it could be the end of one more game of Trey Turner's college baseball career too, and Brett Austin, who's had a great year. So some pretty significant college baseball players with their careers on the line up in Blacksburg this weekend. I'll be around here this weekend banging out draft reports just like Aaron. All that coverage is at baseballamerica.com. So for Aaron, I'm John. Thanks a lot for watching us here on the Baseball America Google Plus Hangout. Peace out.